Hello everyone, this week we'll explore how to do this rainy painting using watercolors. This is my home studio where I share my passion for watercolor paintings. My name is Dinesh. Today we will learn how to paint a rainy scene in watercolor. In rainy paintings, the key element is capturing the reflections on the ground where the objects are anchored. Additionally, it is more important to convey the mood of the place rather than focusing on details. Before we dive in, be sure to hit the subscribe button to become a part of our ever-growing creative community. Now, without further ado, let's get started, everyone. I found this reference on Pinterest. Credit to the photographer who captured this image, and he captured really nice. There's a person, there's a streetcar, and it's raining and snowing, and there's a reflection on the ground. And this is a beautiful composition for painting in watercolors. Whenever I paint, I try to capture the essence of reference, but I try to put my own spin in my painting. I don't copy things as it is because it can be quite boring. Because we have to express ourselves because we are doing a painting. If you're just copying as it is, might as well take a picture of the exact same scene. As for the subplate goes, I'm using bovine watercolor paper, but I'm using art press for this painting, but this is rough surface, but the same company with the 300 GSM. And for the paints, I'm using Winsor Newton professional grade watercolor paints, and you can use any watercolor paints you want. So before I do any kind of painting, I usually sketch my map or sketch for watercolor painting. And you can also see I'm constantly comparing my reference and checking the proportions. The easiest way to simplify any kind of sketch is to focus on your focal point. So my focal point, the biggest thing going to be the streetcar. So I will just block it and I'll place it exactly 1/3. And from there, I will just go and do other things, which is covering those streetcar. And again, there's also a lot of this big truck which is behind it. I'm going to ignore it. And what I did is I moved the car, began the streetcar, and I also added a person. He's walking in front of a car, but I gave him like an umbrella just to create a nice contrast in the foreground. And you can see that I also am adding a couple of figures which is on the right hand side as well. And I also add a lot of figures in my painting sometimes just to show the scale of it, and that's the reason behind it. And again, sometimes a lot of people think that I just paint. When they see my painting, they don't see my pencil marks, because when you sketch for watercolors, try to make sure you sketch really light. Unless you're going to paint something really dark in your watercolor painting, then you can go a little bit darker. For example, the reflection is a little bit darker on the right hand side on the top part, and I would have just went and made a darker shade for it, because we're going to apply a darker part on it, so we could go over it. And again, this is just going to act as a roadmap, because the reason we also sketch light on watercolor is we can't paint over it, because it's not an opaque medium. It's known for the transparency, because we have to layer it in such a way that we can slowly increase our value. And I'm looking for a color which is in my reference, and this is kind of like in a rainy day bluish tone. It's all over in the reference, and I think the photographer, he edited this picture and he color graded this picture, and you can see there's a lot of blue spill in the reference, but I'm going to make it a little bit dull, and I'm going to try to and I also noticed that the reference also looks a little bit darker, but I also made it a little bit lighter. So the other thing I did is I did the first wash, and I used the same colors, and I just went over on top of my streetcar. So that's what I did. So the first wash, the building, you can do anything you want, so that's why I just skipped that part, because I want to expedite the process. And you can see that I'm starting with the streetcar, and I'm checking, I'm starting from left to right. So it's easier to paint from left to right, because if you paint from right to left, you might smudge over the paint. So that's the reason I usually paint from left to right. It's easier. So I'm focusing on the red on the shadow side, And for that, there's a red and there's a little bit of blue in it. So I'm using cadmium red and a little bit of blue, cobalt blue in it. And on the other side, I'm using a little bit of this blue tinge of cerulean blue, and top of it I used French ultramarine blue. And now I'm using a burnt amber, if you don't believe it, burnt amber and a little bit of yellow ochre in it. And I'm focusing on the red areas. So whenever there I see like a little bit of a white part, I'm just going to skip it, and rest of the painting I'm just going to keep doing it. Now I'm focusing on the car. It's the same thing. I'm going to be using gray color. So for the grayish colors, you could use Pion's gray or neutral tint. Works really nice for our painting. And for the figure, and you can see that I left the umbrella as it is, and I'm going to leave a little bit of stain the wash. And I went over and stained the wash again on the building, nothing fancy. It's the same color I used, and I just went over it just to increase the value of it. And make sure when you do it, use a lot of blues in it, because it's a rainy painting and it's also like a rainy day. So we have to make sure that it looks a little bit bluish, and it also gives a little bit mood to our painting. And you can see that I used a darker pigment on the window in the front. And for that, I'm using cerulean French ultramarine blue and neutral tint. And now I'm focusing on the right hand side. And there's also a figure there. I'm just going to combine it as one single shape. Now I'm adding a couple of details on the back of it. And you can see that even though the details are a little bit like, of the same value in the building, but I made it a little bit darker, so the things pop up. So whenever I paint, the one thing I keep in mind is to show the forms of anything I paint. So when I finish a painting or finish an object, I think that does it look 3D? Does it reads the light side, the shadow side, and it anchors on the ground? So those are the things I ask myself. And if it doesn't look 3D, and I will see the values. So the easiest way I see values is by squinting my eyes. So I squint my eyes and I check my value, and I'll check my reference. Does it aligns? And if it doesn't align, I'll just glaze over it. And there is a couple of things when I teach. A lot of my students do this mistake of doing the wash as really light wash. Everything looks the same with the same value, and it looks really flat. But if that's your style, you can go for it. But if you want to create a realistic painting, you have to show things like 3D. And you can see that that's what I'm trying to achieve in my the streetcar shape. Because I'm not worried about the details first. I'm thinking about how can I make this streetcar look 3D, and how can I make this look realistic. So those are the things I'll get really focused on. So this is the reflection I use. So I use bluish color. I'm also using a little bit of white paint in it. I'm using cerulean blue and white paint in it. And once I apply a wash, I just put a darker color wherever the streetcar, the car, and the person standing. That's what I did. And for some reason the video didn't record it, so I just skipped the step. So that's the exact same thing I did. So use cerulean blue with white paint, and before it dries out, use a darker color on top of it for the cars, for the person, and for the streetcar. And that's what exactly I did. I didn't do anything else. And you can see that I'm just bringing the strokes all the way down. So everything looks like, it's running down at the bottom. So, and you can see this is how it looks like once I added a wash on top of it. So now I'm using white paint to bring back some of the eyelets back. And I usually use it sparingly. And some people doesn't like the idea of using white paint, but I usually use white paint quite often in my painting, just to bring back some of the eyelets, even for example in the front of the streetcar. And I also want to make this lights glowing, so I'm kind of adding a streak. If you see in a rainy day, I wear glasses. With my glasses, when I see this lights, there's like little bit of streak happens. I'm trying to add this just for fun, just to enhance the look of my painting. And you can see I'm also adding the eyelets for the light, which is in the foreground. Again, the things which are in the foreground, I'll add more details, and as it goes in the background, I'll add less details as it resits at the background. And again, now I'm trying to bring the 3D look on my the StreetCar, which is facing in, which is also in front of the foreground. So that's the most really important part. So I want to, and this also my Euro focal point. So I want to make sure that it looks really amazing. So when someone sees this painting, I want the focus to go on the StreetCar. So that's why I'm trying to do it. And now I'm going to use this StreetWires. The StreetWires, I usually add this lines just to act as a leading line. So this will take us into the painting, and this also enhances perspective in our painting as well. As soon as I add the lines, you can see that the lines kind of like leads us in, it's all the way to the background. And again, I don't copy as it is. As I said in the beginning of the video tutorial, I don't paint things as it is. I try to change a lot of stuff, and you can see there's a lot of building, and even the StreetCar was in a different angle, but I changed it because I want to create things as I wanted. And there's also this couple of these trees which is also on top of the foreground. I will add it because the reason I'm going to add this is that will help to focus on the StreetCar. So I'll try to make those leaflets making sure to pointing to the StreetCar. So the composition kind of like goes in. So I used the kind of a little bit of a thick brush to add the thicker leaflets. Now I'm using my pinstripe brush to create a thin leaflets. And again, I don't copy things as it is, and it's a way of painting. When you paint, or when I paint, I usually enjoy painting. You know, I don't try to copy as it is, and I'll try to think about how can I capture this trees or anything in as simple as possible and as easy as possible. I'm not being lazy. I'm just trying to convey this painting in my own style, and that's how you create your own style. Just developing your own way of creating strokes and simplifying your painting. And this is how the painting looks like. I usually put aside the painting after I finish the initial phase of the painting, and I'll add the details on top of it later. Now it's your turn. Use the techniques I showed and try to capture the essence from your reference or even the reference I'm using now. And let's see what you can come up with. Thank you once again for watching this painting tutorial. Please feel free to share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. If you have any other watercolor related topics you would like me to cover, reach out to me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or leave a comment down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to hit the subscribe button to become a part of our learning community. By subscribing, you'll receive weekly upload notifications and stay updated on our channel and share with your fellow artists, friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.